Not too long ago, in a town not too different from yours, there lived a beautiful girl named Cynthia. Cynthia was the first daughter of her house, and in many Nigeria homes, being the first daughter is not a title. It's a full-time unpaid job. She had two younger brothers who looked up to her like she was the sun itself. Even though she couldn't even afford to buy herself sunglasses, her father was bedridden after an accident years before. Lying on a mat all day like a furniture nobody wanted to move. Her mother was a petty trader, so poor that even her own customers used to buy from her out of pity. The way people drop money in an offering basket just because the usher smiled nicely at them. So little Cynthia grew up fast, faster than jollof rice cooking on a hungry Sunday afternoon. While other girls her age were still fighting over crayons and biscuits, Cynthia was already washing clothes for neighbors and running errands up and down the street like a human Okada, except nobody paid her transport fare. She was beautiful too, the kind of beauty that makes market women pause mid-argument just to stare. But her hustle spirit spoke louder than her face ever could. One of the people she ran errands for was a woman called Auntie Boss, an event planner who moved through town organizing weddings the way a general organizes troops for battle. Cynthia, buy me this. Cynthia, carry that. Cynthia, hurry, hurry. And Cynthia obeyed every single time, because a small change today beats an empty pocket tomorrow. Any day, anytime. Then one day, after Cynthia finished secondary school with no money for university, Auntie Boss looked at her and said something that changed everything. Why are you still doing peanut errands? Come and work for me properly. I will place you on a real monthly salary. Cynthia's smile that day was wider than a bright smile. After the caterer confirms the small chops arrived on time, her mother was happy too, though a small worry sat quietly at the back of her mind. The way an uninvited relative sits quietly at Christmas dinner, eating your rice, but saying nothing useful. Auntie Boss's job carried her all over, sometimes as far as Lagos, and mothers worry about their daughters traveling with strangers, especially strangers who plan parties for a living and knows absolutely everybody. But Auntie Boss was known to be a good woman, so the mother allowed it, warning her daughter only to be careful, the way every Nigerian mother warns her daughter about everything, from strange men to overripe plantain that looks fine on the outside. And that was how Cynthia's new life of arranging chairs, chasing caterers, and hunting down missing wedding decorations began. One bright Saturday in July, at a big colorful wedding where the Ashwebi alone could have sponsored a small business, a man saw Cynthia across the hall, and his eyes twisted the way a hungry man's eyes twist at the smell of roasted suya. His name was Jacob. Jacob did not waste time. He walked straight over, smooth like a politician approaching a camera during election season. Hello, I noticed you. You are very hardworking. What's your name? Cynthia, who had already been warned about men at events, men who chop and clean mouth like nothing ever happened, simply said, "Excuse me, sir, I'm busy," and walked off faster than a debtor who just spotted his creditor's car parked outside. But Jacob's eye followed her the whole event, up and down, left and right, like a CCTV camera that had somehow grown legs. And after that day, everywhere Cynthia went for work, Jacob mysteriously appeared too, dressed rich, smelling expensive, looking like he had personally stepped out of a bank advert. He always approached the same soft, respectful way, complimenting her hustle, and she always ran the way a market woman runs from area boys demanding toll fee. The more she ran, the more he chased. A full Tom and Jerry show, except this particular cat wore designer shoes and drove a car worth more than our whole street combined. Eventually, Auntie Boss pulled her aside. "This man has been coming to meet me too. He says he like you. I don't know if he's your destiny helper, but nobody chases like this to play. There's no harm in giving him a chance. And with that simple push, Cynthia finally told Jacob her name. Jacob did not rush. That was the real trap. He was patient, like a fisherman who already knows the fish will bite eventually. So why hurry? He would text her, "How are you, Cynthia? You're such a hardworking girl. Not many girls like you left in this world." And compliment like that landed on Cynthia's heart softer than a pillow after a long day of standing. Slowly, small, feelings began to grow, the way weed grows after a rain nobody was expecting. He asked about her family. He asked why she wasn't in school. He said he believed in her potential more than her own mirror did. And before long, they were dating. And Jacob became what every struggling family secretly prays for, a full destiny helper. He paid for a better apartment. He sorted her brother's school fees. He sent money for her father's medication, even without being asked. The way a good pastor prays without being told which problem to pray about. Cynthia was skeptical at the beginning, but Auntie Boss, the eternal cheerleader of this whole romance, said, "Somebody wants to help you free of charge, and you are standing there analyzing him like why question. Collect him before another girl comes and collects it for you." So Cynthia collected it, all of it. Then Jacob told her to go back to school. When she said there was no money for that either, he simply replied, "What am I here for? You are mine." And that word, mine, sent a strange chill down her spine. The kind of chill you feel when the light suddenly goes off in a horror movie, right before something jumps out. She had heard mine used sweetly in films before, so she told herself this was normal. But somewhere quietly inside her, her spirit was already knocking on the door, whispering, "Please hear this word well before it's too late." When she mentioned the strange feeling to Auntie Boss, the woman laughed her off completely. "Cynthia, stop being archaic. Do you want him to call you Okokobioko instead? Mine is a sweet romantic word." And so Cynthia buried the warning bell ringing quietly in her chest, the way you press snooze on an alarm clock you don't want to hear, even though you know very well it will only wake you up angrier the second time. She enrolled in university. Jacob drove his big shiny car to campus regularly, showing off like a peacock strutting through a market square, and other girls watched Cynthia with envy strong enough to spoil a whole hostel's peace for a week. Before her first year even ended, Jacob proposed. She wasn't ready. She was barely 20. But between Auntie Boss insisting, "Don't miss this opportunity of a lifetime," and her mother adding, "I married your father early too, and see, nothing bad happened." Even her bedridden father's soft protest couldn't stop the wedding train that had already left the station, blowing its horn on the way out.
Thanks for watching to this extent. Please click the like and subscribe buttons to get more content like this.
The wedding was quiet. Jacob's own request. Too quiet, in fact, for a man who drove cars worth more than an entire street's yearly income combined. Only a small handful of his people showed up. One cousin, one sister, 3 friends, all dressed well but strangely silent, like people attending a meeting they weren't fully briefed on, nodding along to conversations they clearly had no part in. He explained that his mother was sick, so his father had to remain behind to nurse her. Cynthia, blinded by expectation and the comfort of a new, easier life, did not press further. She should have. That right there was her first big red flag, waving harder than an Okada rider trying to overtake 3 cars and a fuel tanker at once. But love, or whatever this was, has a way of covering the eyes better than any thick ashwebi gele could ever. When she entered Jacob's house that first night, her mouth dropped open the way a whole village drops its jaw when the masquerade finally appears at the square. The place was enormous. The kind of house you only see in those big budget Nollywood movies, with private jets parked outside and marble on every single floor, even the bathroom. She lay in bed that wedding night, expecting the obvious thing every newly married couple expects. But sleep grabbed her faster than a hungry uncle grabs the last piece of meat in a soup pot. And when she woke up, it was 2 a.m. and Jacob was nowhere to be found. The whole house was dark and silent, the kind of silence that follows immediately after a mother shouts your full name, all three of them in the middle of the sitting room. He returned at 6 a.m. When she asked where he had been, his voice turned cold, the kind of cold that comes from a father who just saw your result and it's not what he expected. Please mind your business. I didn't marry you to monitor me. When I'm around, I am around. When I'm not, I am not. Stay in your own lane. Cynthia was stunned. This was not the sweet, patient man who chased her through wedding after wedding. Something had shifted overnight, the way a landlord's mood shifts the moment rent is one day late. The next morning at breakfast, Jacob was cold and distant, talking to her like a business associate rather than a wife. Before leaving for work, he warned her not to wander too much around the house, pointing specifically at one particular room. Do not go in there, he said. Then, almost like a threat dressed up in affection, he added, remember, you are mine. That word again, except this time, it did not feel romantic at all. It felt like a padlock clicking shut something deep in her heart. The house staff avoided her eyes the way people avoid eye contact with a friend who wants to borrow money at month end. Lonely, confused, and increasingly uneasy. Cynthia rushed to Auntie Boss to explain how her once loving husband had turned strange overnight. Auntie Boss, forever the voice of just manage him, waved it off without even blinking. As long as he's not hitting you, my dear, you are perfectly fine. Men change small after wedding. That one is normal. If only Auntie Boss knew that some doors are not locked to punish a wife. Some doors are locked because what's behind them should never ever see daylight. Days passed. Cynthia tried to obey, tried to stay in her lane the way Jacob wanted. But curiosity tugged at her heart harder than a toddler, tugging his mother's wrapper in the middle of a crowded market. Every night, the house felt cold. Not the cold of a Harmattan wind sneaking through a window, but a cold with no explanation at all. Like something invisible was breathing quietly down the hallway, waiting. Then Jacob announced he was traveling for business and might not return that night. The moment his car cleared the gate, Cynthia sent the house help out on an errand, grabbed the hammer from the store, and broke the lock on that forbidden room like a woman on a mission from God. Or, in this particular case, a mission she probably should have thought twice about. What she saw inside made her spirit collect its slippers, pack a small Ghana must go, and relocate straight to Sokoto without even giving proper notice. 3 young women, preserved so perfectly they looked asleep, not dead. Candles flickered beside their photograph like a shrine nobody was supposed to find. Calabashes sat on the floor in a neat, deliberate row, and in one of them, a live tortoise moved slowly, almost patiently, as if it too had been assigned to keep watch. Her body froze harder than soya meat left outside overnight in December cold. Her phone rang. It was Jacob, the man she had saved in her contact simply as mine. She didn't want to pick it, but the ringing refused to stop, louder and more relentless than a church bell on Easter morning. She picked up. So you went snooping, his voice said, calm in that particular way that scares you far more than shouting ever could. I warned you. Now you will learn the hard way. Do not forget you are mine, and I can do whatever I want with you. Wait for me, I am coming. Nobody, absolutely nobody waits around after hearing that. Cynthia did not run. She fled, her legs moving so fast they were practically touching the back of her own head. She ran straight to Auntie Boss's house, breathless, shaking like a new Okada rider on his very first day with a learner's permit. Auntie Boss's own mouth dropped open so wide that some well-traveled mosquito from earlier could have finally moved in permanently and started paying rent. Jacob is a ritualist? She gasped. only now fully understanding the danger she had spent months dismissing with a wave of her hand. But Jacob's calls never stopped. He called Cynthia. He called her parents. He threatened everybody. His voice thick with the confidence of a man who had never once been told no in his entire wicked life. She's mine. Bring her back, or I will destroy everything with her name written on it. Cynthia's family packed the little they owned and fled their rented apartment that same night. The way people run when a landlord suddenly announces the whole building is on fire. Except this particular fire had a name, and that name was Jacob. Fear followed Cynthia straight into her dreams every night. The moment she shut her eyes, a large, aggressive dog appeared, chasing her relentlessly through endless streets while she screamed for help that never came. People stood around in her dreams, watching, doing absolutely nothing. The way a crowd gathers around a fight in the streets, phones out, recording, but nobody actually stepping in until the fight is already over. One night, the dog finally caught her. It bit her leg in the dream, and she woke up screaming in real life, sweat pouring down her body like she had just finished dancing at 3 back-to-back Owambe parties without resting. Her leg had no wound, no scratch, nothing physical to show, but the pain was real as the fear that grips you when your name is the first one called during a surprise class test. Hospitals ran test after test and found absolutely nothing wrong. Painkillers only made the pain worse, like sprinkling extra pepper on a wound instead of medicine. Within days, her leg had swollen to the size of 10 tubers of yam mashed together, red, hot, and terrifying to look at. One hospital even suggested amputation. Her mother, standing firm like an Iroko tree that has survived 100 storms, refused outright. This is not a matter for the body. This one is spiritual. They tried prophets. They tried native doctors. Nothing worked. Nothing at all. Finally, Auntie Boss remembered a church that once helped her during a difficult business season, and they went there as a last resort. The way a family finally agrees to sell the last goat only when there is truly no other option left. The man of God looked at Cynthia the moment she walked through the door and said, "You are already gone. My daughter, your soul left this body long ago. What battle have you been fighting quietly?" Cynthia narrated everything. The chase, the marriage, the casket, the tortoise, the word mine that always sent chills racing down her spine. The pastor explained it plainly. Every single time Jacob called her mine, and she quietly accepted it, she had been handing her soul over to him piece by piece, like paying installments on something she never actually agreed to buy. He had been using her, grooming her slowly, and worse, he had been preparing to use her fully, permanently for his rituals. The whole family broke down in tears. Cynthia gave her life to Christ that day. Alongside both her parents, they prayed through the entire night without sleeping, exactly as instructed, because the pastor warned that their lives genuinely depended on staying awake and praying without stopping. The next day brought fasting, more prayer, more tears, more fighting for a life that had almost been stolen from under her. And then finally, after days of quiet battle, Cynthia slept, a deep, peaceful sleep, the kind she hadn't known in weeks, the kind of sleep you only get after a long, hot Saturday of pounding yam and finally sitting down. No dog chased her that night. When she woke up, the swelling in her leg had completely disappeared, quietly like a bad rumor that finally runs out of people willing to spread it. Here's the part nobody saw coming. Weeks later, once Cynthia was strong enough to sit up properly and talk, Auntie Boss finally admitted something she had buried for years, something that turned the whole story on its head. She had known Jacob before that wedding in July. Not well, not closely, but she had planned one event for him years earlier. A strange, quiet gathering with no music, no dancing, just candles and low voices. At the time, she thought nothing about it. Event planners say all sorts of strange requests, and money is money. But something about that night had unsettled her enough that she never took another booking from him again. And yet, when Jacob started appearing at every single wedding Cynthia walked, Auntie Boss never once put two and two together. Or worse, some part of her did, quietly, and chose to look away because a wealthy man showing interest in her girl meant good business, good connections, good favor for her own event company. She had waved off every single warning sign Cynthia brought to her. The chill from the word mine, the strange coldness of the house, even the almost empty wedding, not entirely out of ignorance, but partly out of convenience. It was easier to believe Jacob was the destiny helper than to ask hard questions that might have cost her a good relationship with a rich, generous client. Cynthia sat in silence for a long moment after hearing this. She did not shout. She did not cry immediately. She simply looked at the woman who had been like an elder sister to her and said quietly, "Auntie, you knew and you still pushed me towards him." Auntie Boss could not meet her eyes. "I didn't know it was this bad, Cynthia. I swear before God, I didn't know." Maybe she truly didn't know the full extent of it. But not knowing everything is not the same as not knowing anything at all. And that perhaps was the real twist nobody in this story saw coming. The danger did not only wear Jacob's face. Sometimes it wears the face of the person you trust most, standing right beside you, smiling, while quietly looking away from what she does not want to see. The family hid quietly for weeks, living underground like fugitives dodging wanted posters, until one day, the television delivered news that shook the whole town. Jacob had suffered a heart attack right there inside his own bedroom. His house staff, who had been warned for years never to enter that forbidden room, finally rushed in when they heard him screaming. And there they discovered everything at once. The bodies, the fetish items, all of it laid bare like evidence at a trial nobody wanted to attend. The police stormed the mansion. They discovered the three preserved women were girls reported missing months earlier. Girls who had simply gone to a club or to a boyfriend's house and never returned home. All that time, they had been resting quietly in a dark room sacrificed for wealth that Jacob wore around like designer clothing. Jacob was arrested, charged with murder, and days later, he died right there in the hospital. His heart finally, truly giving out for good. His face was splashed across every television screen in the country. The wealthy ritualist who preyed on beautiful, hardworking young girls. When Cynthia saw the news, tears rolled down her face. Not tears of pain, but tears of pure gratitude. She would have become casket number 4. Cynthia's family moved back to their old apartment weeks later, starting life again from exactly where it had stopped. The way a market resumed trading the Monday after a very long holiday. Slowly at first, but steady. Her leg was still healing, and for a while, she walked around on crutches, drawing stares from people who wondered what could have possibly happened to such a fine, beautiful girl. Nobody knew the real story except her parents, and Auntie Boss. That leg was not just an injury, it was a battle scar. Proof that she had survived the most terrifying marriage a young girl could ever walk into. Eventually, the leg fully healed. She helped her mother in the shop, bought medications for her father, and returned to school after a full year away, meeting a world that had moved on comfortably without her. New faces occupied the seat our old classmates once sat in, but she did not mind. She simply started again from where she had stopped, the way every true survivor learns to do, one small step at a time. When old friends who hadn't heard the news asked about her husband, she would simply smile and say, "We are no longer together. I thank God for how everything ended. And then she would walk on, a small limp still in her step, but her spirit standing taller than it had ever stood before. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this story up to this point, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and let us know where you're watching from in the comment section below. And until I bring another epic tale your way again, bye for now.